Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of True Crime with Kendall Rae. Thank you so much, as always, for joining me today. I truly appreciate it. I know there is a lot of content out there on the internet these days, and I really appreciate you taking the time to spend some time with me. And for any of you who are new to my show, welcome. Also, so happy to have you. And if you're interested in sticking around, make sure to click subscribe so that you never miss an upload from me. So today, guys, the case that I am going to be talking about is one that is very difficult to talk about. It's also been highly requested by so many of you. And as soon as I started learning the details, as hard as I knew it was going to be to talk about, I knew we absolutely needed to. We are going to be talking about Emily Pike, who was murdered at just 14 years old, just a child, just a baby, really. And she was brutally and senselessly killed after she snuck out of a group home. And I mean, the story and everything surrounding it and the aftermath of it all is just so upsetting, but more people need to hear her story. She is one of the many Indigenous people whose life has been stolen, and her case really highlights the epidemic of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls that plagues this country. It's beyond inhumane what this little girl went through, and there not only needs to be justice, but truly there needs to be a major change in how the system handles cases of all missing and murdered Indigenous people, which is something that we have talked about on this show countless times. I have been happy to see that Emily has gotten some coverage in really just the true crime podcast and creator community, which is awesome, and also in some local news station. It's all fantastic, but she really needs national media attention. The monster who killed this beautiful child should not be able to escape her face and name. They should just be absolutely bombarded with what they did every single day and have to suffer with knowing what and who they stole from this world. Before I get into Emily's case, I do have an exciting announcement. I believe I mentioned this last week, but in case you missed last episode, I did want to bring it up again. I wanted to let you know that all Mile Higher Media shows, our merch is now all in one place, which is something that we have been trying to work on for quite some time. I know there have been so many people complaining about, I want to get merch from multiple Mile Higher Media shows, but the shipping, you'd have to pay for shipping for all those different shows, which is totally understandably annoying. We finally fixed this issue, so everything is available at milehighermerch.com. But what's really great, and what I'm really excited to announce, is that 100% of the proceeds from merch for all shows, so every single piece of merch on our website, is now directly going to my foundation, Higher Hope, and will support victims of violent crime and their families, as well as like-minded organizations that are doing the same thing that we are. So if you're interested in supporting Higher Hope, we could use all the support we could get so that we can help as many people as we can. And that is all available at milehighermerch.com. So check it out, see if there's anything you're interested in. Maybe you want to get something for a friend even, or Mother's Day, Father's Day is coming up. I don't know, but we would love your support, and it's an easy way to do that while also treating yourself to something nice. And then also, before we jump in, I need to thank today's sponsor, Sundays for Dogs, because it's thanks to their support that I'm going to be able to reach out to Emily's family and offer them a Hope Grant. So by now, I'm sure a lot of you know that my husband and I have 10 pets. They're all mammals. They're all wonderful, and 4 of them are dogs, and they truly mean the world to us. I know all of you pet parents out there get it. Our animals are part of the family. They're an extension of our hearts. And like many of you, I would do anything to make sure that my pets are happy and healthy. And over the years, we have tried so many different dog food brands, and while a lot of them were pretty good, none of them checked all the boxes for us until we found Sundays for Dogs. And oh my gosh, all of us in our house are a huge fan of Sundays for Dogs. Not only are they vet-founded and vet-run, which gives me complete confidence in their health benefits, but it's also made from entirely human-grade ingredients. You see that? human grade right on the package. And I'm sure you've either seen on this show or another one of our shows that my husband straight up will take a bite of it and says it's not that bad at all. Sundays is made with 100% meat muscle, organs, and superfoods, and zero synthetics or artificial preservatives. It's air dried, so it can be stored on a shelf because, as you can imagine, our fridge is not big enough to fit food for 4 dogs. So give your dog the chance to try Sundays for themselves and watch them fall in love. Go to sundaysfordogs.com/TCKR for 50% off. Big thank you again to Sundays for making this episode possible and making sure that we can better support Emily's case. Her friends and tribe are desperately seeking attention on this. And if you guys want to help, you can do so just by sharing her story, whether that's word of mouth or on social media. We cannot stop talking about Emily. So with that, let me tell you about what we know so far, which I will warn you, this is pretty early on in this case. There is still a lot that we don't know. But I just wanted to tell you what we do know for those of you who haven't already been following her case. So let's start out by just talking about Emily and who she was. Emily Carla Pike was born on May 16th, 2010 into the San Carlos Apache tribe. And she was born on the San Carlos Apache Reservation located in southeast Arizona. Her mom, Steph, has been as vocal as possible in the midst of all of this. But considering how recently her daughter's life was taken, there's a lot, like I said, that we don't know yet. But what I can tell you about Emily, though, is that she was such a sweet and special little girl. People remember her as having a joyful spirit as well as a loving and kind of quirky personality, and I'm always drawn to the quirky among us. She also had a major love of K-pop and also playing the game Roblox. Emily loved all things sparkly. She loved pink, which is why I set the background colors to pink today for her. And she also loved cats, so I hope that she would like my cat. And she told everyone that she actually wanted to be a vet when she grew up. Emily was also super artistic, and I read that she was interested in maybe pursuing art as well, all of which she should have had the opportunity to do. But at just 14 years old, any hope for her future and accomplishing her aspirations, goals, and dreams was just taken from her, and it makes me sick to know what this poor child went through at the end of her life. You're going to hear me explain the circumstances of how her life ended here in a minute, but I just want to right off the bat remind you guys, which I almost feel I don't need to because my audience is so awesome, but just for, the people that will say things, I just wanted to remind everyone that she did not and could not have known better. So I just ask that you keep any of that commentary to yourself because it's not helpful to anyone. But with all that being said, let's talk about what happened. So leading up to Emily's murder, she actually wasn't living on the reservation. Instead, she was living in a group home in Mesa, Arizona, which is about 120 miles west. A lot of people I've seen covering this case have chosen not to name the home to protect the kids who are still living there, which I think is a great decision. I definitely want to follow suit, but just know that she had been living in a group home. As for why she was there, that's one of the many things that we don't have a lot of insight on, but we do know that she was placed there by tribal social services. And we also know that she was likely placed there because she was struggling with her mental health and they had better resources for her than if she were on the reservation. Now, there is a group home on the reservation. However, due to the high demand for child placement and limited staffing and space, it doesn't sound like there was even room for Emily there. And one thing that I want to clarify right away here is that the home that she was in does work with the Department of Child Services, or DCS, to place kids, but Emily wasn't in the care of DCS. She was in the care of, like I said, tribal social services, and that distinction does matter. And also, which I'm sure a lot of people are wondering about her family and her home life, and that's another area where we just don't have a lot of clarification or answers. I can tell you, though, that Emily was surrounded by a community who loved her, including her parents, her grandmother, her aunts and uncles, as well as her cousins. Her father was in prison at the time of her death for criminal damage. And again, there's not a lot of information here on that, but his incarceration didn't impact the love that he had for Emily as far as what's been reported. I will say I especially loved learning about her relationship with her cousins. She was very, very close with her cousins, some of them. And I think the cousin bond can be very, very special. I am personally best friends with my cousin, and two of her cousins were around the same age as her, and they called themselves the trio, and they were basically inseparable. And even while Emily was away, they would talk to her on the phone, and they would make plans for when they could finally see each other again. They were just a huge part of each other's lives, which just breaks my heart thinking that they no longer have her, and it shouldn't be that way. They even spoke just a few weeks before what happened, and they remember her saying that she was going to be home within a month, which I guess they were excited about because they were making plans to go shopping when she came home. But this was a little confusing because it hasn't been reported if this was a legitimate plan that they had or if this was something that Emily was independently hoping would happen. Some people think it was the latter, though, especially given what happened on January 27th, 2025, very, very recently. That day at 8:19 p.m., the group's home manager made a call to the Mesa Police Department to report that Emily was AWOL, which if you haven't heard that term, the Oxford Dictionary defines it as absent without official leave, but without intent to desert, or absent from where one should be. Missing. I guess there was a local church group that had come to the group home, which sort of created a distraction, and she was able to slip out of her bedroom window. And according to reports, she was last seen walking near the intersection of Mesa Drive and McKellips Road at around 7:45 p.m., but after that, Emily was never seen or heard from again. And this wasn't very far from the home, so it's believed that whoever took her did so not long after she left. And what we also don't know yet is if she knew this person or not. The group home doesn't allow cell phones, so I'm not sure if there's any type of digital trail or not. And let me just say, the saga, I should say, of how her disappearance was handled is going to piss you off, or at least it should. And that started with what we see in so many cases of missing children and teenagers who are failed by the system. And that's because the missing persons report, when it was taken, she was considered a runaway teen, which isn't entirely untrue. The problem, though, and again, something we see a lot, is they used Emily's history of running away as an excuse to not take this seriously. Now, Emily's full history of how long she was in the group home actually hasn't been released, but we know that she had lived there 2 separate times. And in 2023, she ran away from the home on 3 different occasions. And on one of those occasions, Emily actually ran away with another child from the home. And this is really sad, but every time that Emily ran away and was found by the police, she made it clear that she really did not want to go back there. In September, she and that other child who she ran away with told the Mesa police, quote, they did not want to go back to the group home because they make them work by scrubbing walls, baseboards, window seals, and even getting on their hands and knees to scrub the grout on the tile. Now, one of them, and we're not exactly sure who, actually said that she would rather go to jail or live with her grandma than return back to the group home. And then in another September runaway incident, Emily told the officers that she didn't want to go back, quote, because it makes her uncomfortable when the staff gets into arguments with other juveniles in the home. And this is, of course, I think, in my opinion, one of those things that you could never truly understand what it's like unless you have lived in a situation like this. And of course, I can't say that I understand how Emily felt because I've never lived in a group home. And when I was researching this case and, reading comments on other videos and just things on Reddit and forums, I read a lot of stories of people who have lived in these homes. And according to so many of them, these types of things seem to be very common. Some, if not a lot, or the majority of these kids are probably scared and confused and potentially not treated well, and all they really want is to be able to go back home. Obviously, there are probably some group homes that are excellent and that kids do have a good experience in, but I'm telling you from just what I have read from other people's experiences, this seems to be what the majority of them are saying. And I'd love to hear from any of you out there who have experienced living in a group home and what it was like for you personally. But it really seems that a lot of them want to get out of these group homes because they either don't feel safe or don't feel comfortable. And again, I want to be really clear here that not all group homes are bad or create that kind of environment, but Some of them definitely are. And from what we just heard, it sounds like Emily wasn't happy and really, really did not want to be there. And a lot of people have questioned whether the home that she was staying in was doing a good job of protecting kids. It's been reported that in the last 3 years, the Mesa police have responded to over 80 calls from that home specifically, 42 of which were for missing persons. And of those 42 calls, 30 resulted in missing persons reports being filed. Now, I don't want to downplay this at all, but I do feel it's important that I explain it a little bit further because I've seen a lot of coverage on this, especially in early reporting, where people say things like, wow, this group home has had 30 kids run away in just 3 years, which of course it does kind of sound like that. But that was 30 reports for 18 kids. And that is a horrible number still. I mean, 18 kids is too many. 1 kid is too many. But I think it's really important when it comes to these cases that we stick to the facts as much as possible. But yeah, to clear some of the confusion in this case up, it was 30 runaway instances for 18 kids. So basically, if a child ran away twice, that is counted as 2 of the reports. I just wanted to explain that a little further because I think especially in the true crime space, it's so important that we stick to the facts, and saying things like that just perpetuates misinformation. But still, that doesn't change how I feel about this group home and about other group homes I've learned about. I mean, I definitely question this specific group home's ability to protect children who stay there. And even though 18 of those runaways were found, 2 of them were not. One of them, of course, being Emily, but there's also another young girl named Veronica Cruz. Now, she disappeared from this group home in March of 2024, and she has yet to be found. And that alone should have been an indication that there needed to be change. But instead, Emily was able to slip out of her window, where she was quickly met with what can only be described as horror. So in the state of Arizona, it is the law that when a child in state custody goes missing, they need to notify the authorities within 1 day. But since Emily was under the care of tribal social services, that law actually didn't apply. Now, we know that the group home made the report that night and that the Mesa police did report her as missing to the National Crime Information Center that night as well. But nobody, not even the police, thought to notify Emily's family. This is absolutely maddening, but it took a full week before her mom got a call from her daughter's case manager that her daughter was missing. I'm sorry, but you can't tell me the police were trying that hard to find her if they didn't go to her mother first. It just makes no sense. And listen to this. Mesa police said that it wasn't their responsibility to notify her family. Yes, they actually said that. Instead, they said that the group home should have told her case manager, who then should have told her family. And honestly, I don't care what the protocol is. It's all just ridiculous and makes no sense. But at the end of the day, you tell the family if their child is missing. But they didn't. They waited a week. And so tons of precious time was wasted. Her family could have spent time getting the word out or going around, putting out flyers, talking to people they knew, just looking for her. But instead, they had no idea that she was gone. The police did start to circulate flyers as well as canvass the immediate area, but apparently, since they categorized her as a runaway, she didn't meet the requirements of an Amber Alert, which I have also covered cases on all of our shows where this happens. I will never understand. It makes no sense to me. It is so frustrating. And the vibe I really get here, and again, this is just my opinion, is it seems that everyone thought that since she ran away, that she would just be coming back. And so they didn't think or care to look any harder, even though there's a 14-year-old child out there on her own who knows where and who knows in whose hands, which is just wrong on so many levels, but especially when you consider the fact that Indigenous women and girls are murdered and go missing at a disproportionately higher rate than other people. And the state of Arizona is actually ranked 3rd for the largest number of MMIWG cases, behind New Mexico and Washington. The data literally proves that Emily was a high-risk individual, and yet she was not treated that way even remotely. And I don't care what her history was, and I don't care if she chose to run away. It honestly doesn't matter at all. She did not deserve to be killed, and the fact that this wasn't a high priority from the start is why so many people are calling for change and have been for so long, which unfortunately brings me to the hardest part to talk about in this case, which is finding Emily's body. Very recently, on Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2025, officers with the Gila County Sheriff's Office were notified by civilians about suspicious trash bags in a remote area just off of the highway. And when officers arrived, they discovered multiple contractor trash bags which contained dismembered human remains. The remains were located in a very remote area off of Highway 60 near mile marker 277 and Forest Service Road 355, just outside of Globe, Arizona. And based on where she was left, it seems as though someone had pulled into this service road to toss her body before making their escape in an unknown direction. Now, Highway 60 can take you all the way from Arizona to Virginia, and in context of where Emily was last seen, her dump site was 100 miles to the east. And it was also in the direction of her reservation, which has led many people to believe that maybe that's where she was trying to go. Like maybe she was hitchhiking or something. That could be a possibility here. And, this just makes me sick to think about. But do you want to know how her family and everyone else found out about this? Through a leaked memo on Facebook. Yep, you heard that right. Someone in law enforcement accidentally posted an internal memo to the sheriff's office Facebook page. And I can't even begin to understand how someone would make a mistake of this magnitude. It is beyond strange to me. It's so negligent. It almost feels, and this is just my opinion, it almost feels like purposeful, but at the same time, I'm like, why would anyone do that? But how could you be dumb enough to make a mistake like that? It's just so, I cannot understand it. And it was horrible. It was horrible because it contained graphic descriptions of what had been found. Also, I just wanted to quickly note that this memo is very graphic. What I'm about to say is very graphic, very upsetting. So that's your warning to skip forward or to just close out now. But I hope that you'll stay, even though it's difficult to hear, because Emily's story really needs to be heard. This memo shared that an unidentified female was found dismembered in contractor trash bags, and that a head and a torso were found in one bag, and that legs were found in another. It was mentioned that her head and face showed visible signs of trauma, and to this day, her arms and hands have never been found. And I know that that information is brutal to hear, extremely terrifying, and I mean, there aren't even words for it. It is so horrific, but I think it's important that we share what exactly happened to her, what this child went through probably at the end of her life. Now, they didn't name Emily directly in this leaked Facebook memo. Absurd. I don't even have words for it. It's so wild. But it was pretty clear that she was who they were talking about. And get this, guys, they even included photos of the crime scene in this post, including the trash bags that she was found in. Can you even imagine what that would be like for anyone to see, let alone her own family and loved ones, her friends? It is horrific beyond words. It is such a massively disgusting mistake that oh my God, it makes me so angry that this could ever have happened. Not to mention that anyone could have seen that post and then gone to the crime scene, gone to the spot where it happened, and possibly destroyed evidence, especially since it was so early on. I mean, it is just such a massive fuck up. And I'm sorry for my language there. Another word just doesn't seem to cover how messed up this situation is. And to say that this was careless feels like an understatement, but all of this just truly speaks to how cases with Indigenous people, Indigenous victims are handled. So to say that this absolutely outraged their community would be an understatement. I mean, they are so angry beyond words, as they should be. And what makes it even worse is there hasn't even been an apology. Just a follow-up memo that came out on February 26th, which didn't do a whole lot of explaining at all. It reads in part, on February 14th, 2025, the remains of an unidentified female were found. The Gila County Sheriff's Office, in conjunction with the San Carlos Apache Tribal Police, began an investigation. Due to the circumstances, it was decided that further information was needed before any public notification. There was no indication that there was an active threat to the community. Unfortunately, the information on Facebook was intended only for law enforcement agencies and was leaked. GCSO detectives are currently working long hours to make positive identification and find any information and evidence. I do get that this was an official statement, but it is shocking how little sympathy or responsibility there was. I mean, there was really no accountability at all, no real recognition of what a massive mistake this was, and really no apology whatsoever or any attempt at anything close to that. And also, I don't know if you caught this, but they said that there's no active threat. And that just pissed off everyone, the whole community, because to suggest that there's no active threat, it makes no sense. That has been so upsetting to so many people to hear. I think we can all agree that someone who is willing to kidnap and then dismember a 14-year-old girl has either done this before or is sick enough in the head to do it again. Even if they are trying to say that this is an isolated incident, and even if it is, I understand why people are scared and angry. And the next day, everything that people in the community and her loved ones were fearing came true, because the sheriff's office confirmed that these remains did in fact belong to Emily Pike. This confirmation came through both dental records and a DNA sample submitted by her mom.
The remains of a 14-year-old girl were recently found in a wooded area outside of Globe. The teen had been missing after she walked away from a group home. 12 News journalist Sean Rice is joining us where those remains were found with some new emerging details on her death. Sean?
How did 14-year-old Emily Pike disappear from a Mesa group home and 2 weeks later have her remains found right here where I'm standing off Forest Road 355, around 20 miles northeast of the town of Globe? That's a question the Gila County Sheriff's Office and the San Carlos Apache Police Department are desperately trying to answer. January 27th, 2025. That's the date Mesa police say young Emily Pike walked away from a Mesa group home in the area of Mesa Drive and McKellips. For over 2 weeks, she was considered a missing person or a runaway teen. Then on February 14th, parts of Emily's remains were found here in a desolate area off of Highway 60, northeast of Globe. For over a week and a half, the community had no idea that Pike's remains had been found until the Gila County Sheriff's Office accidentally leaked more details on Facebook that were only meant for other law enforcement agencies. In that post, they revealed that Emily's head and torso were found in black trash bags, and her arms and hands were still missing. During this time, the case still being investigated as a homicide, but the sheriff's office and other agencies were intending to keep this information close to the vest for the sake of that investigation.
And not long after this information started coming out, Emily's mom did end up saying a few things publicly, and understandably, it's been hard for her to say a lot given the anguish that she is probably dealing with right now, but she did share how difficult all of this has been for her. Steph also said that she just doesn't understand why this happened, why her daughter, an innocent child, had to be killed. She said that it's going to be especially hard when Emily's 15th birthday comes around. However, she wants to make sure to celebrate her this year and every year that follows. My heart truly breaks for her mother. I mean, Emily was her baby, and now she's gone. And she doesn't have any understanding as to what happened or why. And I would really like to believe that something is being done about it. I'm hopeful that it is. I mean, trying to be. But a lot of it seems to be being kept very close to the vest at this point. Steph has said that she has been told that they have 3 suspects that they're looking into, which you would think sounds promising, but the sheriff's office has actually stated that they have no suspects or even persons of interest at this point. And all they've said that they have is a few leads that they are following up on. And I don't know what that means. Oh, and just for clarification, it's the Gila County Sheriff's Office who is taking the lead since that's where Emily was found. But what's difficult is we don't actually know where Emily was killed. We know where she was last seen and we know where she was found, but we're missing a crucial piece of this puzzle. And so obviously finding this third location is crucial because it could help explain what happened to her. And the contractor bags that she was found in are also going to be very critical. I can imagine, and I hope that they're being tested for DNA and fingerprints, but the type of bags that these were could also speak to the person who did it, potentially. I don't know, maybe it could give us insight on their occupation potentially, or could help figure out where they were purchased. I mean, any insight at this point would be good insight, right? And hell, right now, we don't even know what her cause of death was. And a lot of people have questioned why her hands haven't been found. And if you are really into true crime in general, follow a lot of cases, or potentially work in law enforcement or something similar, you may understand there are several reasons why someone wouldn't want the hands of their victim to be found. But it's a very interesting point that people have brought up, because one of the potential reasons for this is, could Emily have fought her attacker? Is it possible that she may have gotten some of their DNA under her fingernails? So it's possible that they were hidden in a more concealed location. Because when you think about it, whoever did this dumped Emily in a remote location, but they didn't conceal her that well. I truly hate talking about cases where people were dismembered. I think it is so disturbing. But one thing I have learned over the years is that sometimes killers will conceal certain body parts, specifically the hands being one of them, in a different location and try to make them harder to find to avoid the victim from being identified. It's possible that they were hoping that if her remains were found, they wouldn't be able to figure out who she was, or maybe they just didn't want her to be found at all. I'm sure that was a goal as well. But there's something to be said about how and where she was found. I hope that all of those details are being considered. I'm sure they are. The FBI, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and the San Carlos Apache Tribal Police have stepped in to help support this investigation. I'm really glad to hear that. I hope they can really work together to get this beautiful little girl justice. And I will say, it does give me some hope that this many organizations have started coming together for Emily. Emily's case has sparked a major flame when it comes to discussing the disappearances and murders of Indigenous people. And on one hand, it's good to see that happening more and more over the years, but it's horrible that things like this have to happen for people to talk about it. A 14-year-old shouldn't have to be found in trash bags for people to care about the epidemic of missing and murdered Indigenous people. And quite frankly, the conversations that are being had, as great as they are, aren't enough. I mean, even me covering this case isn't enough. And I've seen a lot of support from the true crime community on Emily's case specifically, which is incredible to see. I feel like there has been so much growth in the true crime space over the years, and I'm so thrilled to see that. And like I said, the local news media has picked this up to some degree as well, and that's great. But like I also said earlier, there has been zero national coverage, and her case absolutely deserves that, absolutely needs that, and it hasn't happened yet. And why it hasn't been picked up by the national media really just speaks to the problem, right? I mean, Indigenous people are largely viewed as invisible to our society, and that's not just my opinion, that's a fact. And understanding Native American history, particularly the oppression and marginalization, is something that we all need to take the time to educate ourselves about. And if you already have taken the time to educate yourself about it more and try to educate others. Because choosing not to learn and recognize this history is, frankly, just choosing to ignore and isolate a group of people who deserve the same respect and attention as anyone else. And maybe if there's more conversation and better education, more awareness, maybe some of these horrifying statistics can be improved. A 2016 study by the National Institute of Justice found that 84% of American Indian and Alaska Native women have experienced violence in their lifetime, including 56% who have experienced sexual violence. According to the Indian Health Service, an average of 40% of women involved in sex trafficking are identified as American Indian and Alaska Native. And get this, homicide is the third leading cause of death for Native girls aged 15 to 19 and women aged 20 to 24. Really let that one sink in. It's the third leading cause of death. And not to mention, and again, let this one really sink in, the murder rates for Native women are more than 10 times the national average. Okay? This is a crisis, to say the least, and it disproportionately affects Indigenous communities, especially women and girls. And with the lack of coverage on these cases, there is little to no accountability. This epidemic has been swept under the rug countless times for so long, and it just can't keep happening. It makes no sense. And thankfully, Emily's case is getting some traction, but it can't be for nothing. Now, there have been endless marches and vigils since the news of Emily's murder broke, which really aimed to highlight these very issues. Just a day after they announced that the remains were Emily's, the San Carlos Apache tribe rallied together to raise awareness, and it's really because of their effort that we know about what happened. And the photos from these rallies, guys, they have been so incredibly powerful. And if you're just listening to this episode, I really want to encourage you to look some of these photos up. They're just so impactful. And, you know, the saying, a picture says 1,000 words, I think heavily applies here. It's just so important that you see them for yourself to understand the impact and the pain that these communities are experiencing constantly. And these vigils and rallies for Emily were happening very frequently. Just recently, on March 4th, there was a vigil held near Mesa Drive and McKellips Road, where Emily was last seen, and there was well over 100 people there to show their support. And it wasn't only her tribe, but tribes from all over the valley came to Mesa as well.
It's a song for those who mourn.
This is not just a simple little story. This is a 14-year-old girl. The way she died is not okay. Our communities here are hurting.
Native Americans from all over the valley in Mesa to remember 14-year-old Emily Pike, who went missing late in January and found dead on February 14th off Highway 60 northeast of Globe. Authorities found her body dismembered. They're investigating it as murder. Pike's aunt, remembering the joy she was.
Emily was artistic, she was kind, she was funny. Her grandma explained to her that she was quirky, she was always, laughing.
Pike was part of the San Carlos Apache tribe. Her death highlighting a troubling trend. Native American women go missing and are murdered at a much higher rate than those of other populations.
Justice for Emily!
It's why passions run high.
And police have shut down the intersection as supporters of Emily and her family take to the streets to call for justice and to remember her name.
They should be aware that this is real. We don't always have all the resources we need to help solve these cases.
Emily's aunt said that her niece sparked the world, which is now on fire because of her. And that was just so powerful to me. Her case is continuing to ignite long overdue change, and it's about damn time. And very quickly, a memorial was created on the corner of the intersection where Emily disappeared from, making it so that people not only have a place to memorialize her, but so that people can't ignore what happened. And the next day, there was another vigil in Mesa where hundreds more took to the streets shouting, "Say her name," demanding that justice be served. Dozens of posters could be seen with Emily's name on them, both advocating for justice and for the reform that needs to take place in order to prevent this from happening again. And the spokesperson for Emily's family said that seeing these large crowds really, truly touched their hearts because it gave them comfort and strength in a time where they needed it most. And these large crowds have really come out full force, and they have kept it up for a while. On March 10th, there was a, quote, day of action held at the Arizona State Capitol to call for justice, where more than 100 people marched with the goal of urging lawmakers to make changes when it comes to the crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous people. And listen to this. A 2016 Urban Indian Health Report showed that out of 5,712 cases of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, only 116 were logged into the Department of Justice database. And I want to say those numbers again so that it really sinks in, because I don't think a lot of people truly understand how bad this epidemic has actually gotten. Okay, so 5,712 cases of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, and only 116 of those, 116 out of 5,712 have actually been logged into the Department of Justice's database. Doesn't that make you just want to bash your head on the wall? It blows my mind. And it's not like people are just calling for action without a solution. They have a solution, or at least a plan of something that can start to solve this problem. For example, House Bill 2281 aims to establish an Amber Alert style system specifically for missing Indigenous people. And it would operate just like Amber and Silver alerts and would ensure that Indigenous individuals receive the same priority when it comes to notifying the public. The bill was actually introduced in January of 2025 before Emily even went missing, but in the aftermath of her murder, the push to get it approved has really been expedited.
At 4 o'clock today, Lucha will have activists out here in front of the state capitol rallying in honor of Emily and other missing and murdered Indigenous girls and women. This comes as a piece of legislation is moving through the legislature that would add an Amber Alert style system for the Indigenous community. Now, this legislation started actually before Emily went missing, but recently just passed the House unanimously and is on its way to the Senate, where it will be heard in a public safety committee on Wednesday. The sponsor of this bill says this legislation would create systematic change for the Indigenous community.
We don't have the appropriate data, the jurisdiction, and the resources to address when Indigenous people go missing. And so this bill helps not address it completely, but starts ticking away at the main issue.
And I'm happy to say there actually has been a positive movement with this bill. In February, it actually passed unanimously in the House. And then in March, it passed unanimously by the Senate Public Safety Committee. So now it's going to be heard by the Senate. And if it passes there, it's going to go to Governor Katie Hobbs, where she can either sign it into law or veto it. And hopefully, with how things are trending, I really, really hope and I expect that she will sign it into law. Because if she doesn't, in my mind, she is just a terrible person, and I wouldn't be able to understand why anyone wouldn't sign it into law. It just makes sense, right? But I feel confident that she will. I really, really hope she will. And then another really big issue that needs to be addressed is the lack of communication between different law enforcement agencies. Because when tribal police don't communicate with local and federal authorities and vice versa, that's where serious problems occur. The Not Invisible Act of 2019 was signed into law, and it aimed at improving the coordination among these agencies to combat violence against the Indigenous. It also established a commission to help make recommendations for improving teamwork and finding the best ways to support survivors and families of victims as it relates to the MMIW epidemic. And then there are other bills as well, like the Arizona House Bill 2479, that have been passed to help when it comes to the mandated reporting of missing or runaway children. And of course, all of this is great, but the problems aren't solved yet. And like anything, it does take time for these systems and laws to truly work. And really, it's going to be up to all of us to make sure that the pressure doesn't go away. Okay, we've got to keep the momentum going. And just because these laws are being signed doesn't mean that we can ignore what's happening or pretend like it's getting better. But getting back to Emily's case, I wanted to talk about Emily's grandmother, Agatha. And she has also spoken out about the pain that this has caused for their family and that she and her granddaughter were incredibly close.
Agatha Key is Emily's biological grandmother.
Crying a lot.
She says Emily was always a nice, sweet, quiet girl that got good grades.
I miss her. Hard for me. Imagine what happened to her.
Her death is now being investigated as a homicide by the Gila County Sheriff's Office and the San Carlos Apache Tribal Police. And so far, no arrests have been made.
And the fact that no arrests have been made yet is really frustrating because I get that she was found in a remote location, but where she was abducted was a busy street. And law enforcement has said that they have found surveillance footage of Emily walking in the area. So, of course, I understand that they can't release everything. And I guess we just have to hope that they were able to capture someone picking her up, or at least someone near her, or someone in the area that they are considering a person of interest, or that they have a lead on something. It seems that they are really focusing on tips from the public to help get Emily justice, and they have even created an online tip portal where people can submit any information they have. And of course, I'm going to link that below in the description of this episode and the show notes if you are listening on a podcast platform. Now, another big update did come out more recently in mid-March. That's when DCS announced that they were opening a licensing inquiry into the group home where Emily had been staying. However, a spokesperson from the department did say that they don't believe any action the group home took caused what happened to Emily. And coincidentally, or maybe not, just a day after this was announced, someone from the group home finally decided to speak out. And I'll link the article for you guys with all the questions that they were asked and answered. But to summarize it, there was a lot of skirting around the issue, in my opinion. One thing that was very strange, in my opinion, was when this person was asked why the staff doesn't go out and look for kids when they run away. And the answer was basically that they're a hands-off facility. Like, they don't physically touch the kids if they run away. And okay, but that's not what's being asked here. They want to know why they didn't go out and look. We all want to know why they didn't go out and look, not why they don't touch the kids. It was just a super weird answer, in my opinion. Oh, and speaking of the group home, Emily's roommate actually spoke out and had some very interesting things to say as well. Now, it is a little unclear if she was her current roommate or if she lived there previously and got this information from another girl, but she said that Emily used the church group as a distraction to slip out and see a boy that she met while taking guitar lessons. And I'm sure you guys want to know more about this, and believe me, so do I. I would love to know who this is or if this has been looked into more. We don't really have anything more than that. I would assume, I really do think that it's got to be something that the police are actively looking into. And the roommate was also the one to share that Emily was in the home because of her struggles with mental health, because they supposedly had better resources for her.
The tragic story of Emily Pike, seen by millions.
I wanted to say that I miss you so much.
After the 14-year-old's dismembered body was found in eastern Arizona on Valentine's Day, her remains stuffed into trash bags. But the story hits hardest for those who lived with Emily in the Mesa group home, like her roommate, who we're calling Chelsea to protect her identity.
My relationship with Emily was just like trying to steer her in the right direction because it's hard being in the group home.
Chelsea says she lived at the group home near Mesa Drive in McKellips for 4 years and that Emily lived there 2 different times. Emily was from the San Carlos Apache Reservation, and Chelsea says she struggled with mental health and there were better resources in the valley. While Chelsea recently moved out, she's in contact with many of the girls still living there. She says Emily left the home in late January because she wanted to visit a boy she met while taking guitar lessons. Chelsea says at the time Emily left, a church group was conducting activities at the group home.
What it looked like was that the church was there, and that served as a distraction of when Emily left. She left because she wanted to go out and see the boy that she liked, and she wanted to talk to him. She either used the back door, she used the window, and she left as everyone was distracted.
Based on where Emily's remains were found off Highway 60 heading northeast, Chelsea believes she was just trying to go home.
I feel like she just ran away and she was trying to hitchhike back to her reservation to see her parents, and she just got picked up by the wrong person.
And something that I keep just coming back to is, of course, it may not have been the group home's responsibility to keep an eye on Emily 24/7 necessarily, but it is definitely their job to keep her safe. And again, in my opinion, I don't believe they did that. I know that they reported her missing as soon as they realized that she was gone, but the whole thing just feels very negligent to me. And just as with law enforcement, they should have contacted her family right away. And they didn't, which just wasted precious time. Emily's uncle, Allred Pike Jr., has been a voice for justice in her case, and he has really emphasized the pain that this has caused, especially because Emily's dad is in jail. He says that's been one of the hardest parts. He believes if her case had been paid more attention to in the beginning, or maybe if she wasn't treated only as a runaway, we might already have answers by now. And that is really just a sad fact of this case, is that Emily had a history of running away, and because of that, they decided to assume that that's what happened and that she was going to come back. Now, there is a task force that was put together for her case, but that wasn't even put together until 3 weeks after her remains were identified. So why did it take them so long to do that? Also, I wanted to note that the San Carlos Tribal Council is offering a $75,000 reward for information leading to the arrest of the person responsible, and I hope that's enough to get someone talking. The tribe is also doing an independent study to review their internal processes to determine where improvements can be made, and I'm very happy to see that. They also want to find ways to improve the group home standards off the reservation so something like this doesn't happen again. Specifically, they're requesting that state leaders investigate and tighten regulation for state-licensed residential groups. And here's a quote on this. This investigation should carefully review the safety, security, monitoring, licensing, and operational standards for group homes and determine how these could be strengthened to prevent children from leaving their care without permission. We ask that your recommendations be presented to the legislature to be considered in appropriate legislation that is named in honor of Emily Pike. There really has been such a beautiful sense of community in all of this, which, of course, by no means makes any of this okay, but, there's, I think, some comfort and hope in that. And I wanted to highlight a couple examples. A handful of artists actually came together to paint the most beautiful mural of Emily. And it's not only an incredible depiction of her beauty and her warmth, but it's filled with painted red handprints of people who wanted to honor her and show their support, including her moms. And I'm sure a lot of you know this, but the red handprint is a symbol that's used in the MMIWG movement, which represents the voices of Indigenous women and girls who have been silenced and haven't had their voices heard. Emily may no longer be here, but her story is always going to live on, and that is something that I'm sure of. And seeing how vigils and rallies have been held not only in Arizona, but all around the country shows that she is a uniting force, not just for her own case, but for all missing and murdered Indigenous people. Also, the case of Leo Harry White has gained some attention during all of this, and get this, he is also Native American, and he was found off of Highway 60 and mile marker 277. Just like Emily. I mean, it wasn't the exact same spot, but it was pretty close. And he was found shot to death in a car in 2021, and his case has gone cold. And I'm guessing a lot of you haven't heard of him because it has gotten zero attention. And I mean, I know I hadn't heard of him. And then there's Alexander Esky, another name who has been brought up a lot recently. He went missing in June of 2020, and his family is still desperately seeking answers. Now, more recently in Emily's case, towards the end of March, a 12-page police report was released from the Mesa Police Department. And this gave us more insight into Emily's past and the timeline of her case. And I've already shared what we know about her past, but there are a few things from that I wanted to highlight. Specifically, that on February 11th, the police were notified by an employee of the group home that they received a voicemail from an anonymous caller who claimed that Emily was back home on the reservation with her mom. And what's strange, though, is that this call came in on February 2nd, and they say it wasn't listened to until the 7th, leaving 4 days that they didn't report this. And what reason did they have to hold on to this information? I have no idea. I mean, obviously, it didn't turn out to be true, as confirmed by Emily's mom, but still. We also did learn that Emily was taking some type of medication for what they described as behavioral issues, but I wasn't able to find out any more about this. Obviously, as you can tell, this is one of those cases where there is just so much we still just don't know. There are so many unanswered questions. I really hope, I have to believe that these questions are going to be answered. And the reason I say I believe that is because from what I've seen in her community, nobody is giving up on this little girl, and they will continue to fight until justice is served. Emily was laid to rest at the end of March, where hundreds of people gathered in her memory at the San Carlos High School gym, and a lot of those people were wearing pink. It was a beautiful but deeply emotional celebration of life where they honored Emily through photos and stories, vowing to never give up in the fight for justice. And it was actually a 2-day memorial and wake, and her body had been escorted by a motorcycle group so that they could lay her to rest safely. And I did read that her dad was allowed to attend the wake. However, he was not able to attend the memorial and burial. And again, these pictures they're so powerful. They really capture the emotion of it all and the pain that this community and her loved ones are experiencing. And all I can really say is how badly I'm hoping that justice comes soon, that answers come soon. There have been volunteer-led search efforts to find the rest of Emily's remains, and I know that bringing all of her home is something that everyone wants. Searches have also been conducted by law enforcement, but it sounds like right now they're holding off on doing any more until new information comes in.
I've gone to the location twice.
Twyla Casador has been searching.
A part of her is out there wanting to come home, and a part of her is wanting us to come and find her.
Twyla, who knows the area well, has led small volunteer-based searches for Emily Pike's remains.
For myself as a parent, knowing that we did put in that full effort, and whether her remains be found or not, it brings you a bit of closure.
But she's raising questions on what efforts are being taken by local and federal law enforcement.
We need a crew out there. We need people out there. We need drones out there.
The Gila County Sheriff's Office tells the ABC 15 investigators that they've conducted additional searches in the area with multiple agencies and cadaver dogs. They say that they'll do more searches if there's new information or evidence that would lead them to specific areas.
God has given another beautiful angel.
Hundreds coming out to honor Emily both Friday and Saturday. Services were held to remember the teen.
As a Native American person, as an Apache person, no. She's still out there. We have to go look for her.
Twyla says no one should stop searching. As part of the San Carlos Apache culture, it's important to not stop.
You wouldn't want your child partially there. You don't want anything like this for anybody. And for us as Native Americans, we have a belief system where having all of her there, regardless what the condition is completing her journey.
Twyla plans to continue searches, hoping there will soon be a larger focus and more direction to bring Emily home.
Let's find her. Let's bring her home. Let's bring peace and closure for the family, for the community.
I've been checking daily for updates. I just literally checked right now as I'm recording this, and there's no information as of right now. But if anything comes out, I will pin a comment and put in the description or show notes any new information that comes out. I mentioned earlier that she likely didn't have a cell phone, but I'm wondering if there's any kind of digital trail somewhere. And I've also heard people talking about how she played the game Roblox, which I know a lot of young people play. And I've also, as much as I don't know really anything about Roblox, I've heard that, I've seen a lot actually about how it can be a breeding ground for predators. I know it's an online game, and I'm not sure if she had access to a computer or phone to play it. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure if she even was on Roblox. That's just kind of something people have been talking about. Obviously, your mind can go a million different places when trying to figure out what happened or how she could have ended up in the hands of the wrong person. But at the end of the day, all that really matters is justice. So we need to continue to say her name. We need to continue to spread awareness. And that means sharing any information that you can about Emily's case, whether that's just by word of mouth to people that you know, whether that's posting on your social media or sharing any type of coverage, whether it's my episode, someone else's coverage, a news special, an article, anything like that. Anything that you can do to spread awareness on Emily's case would be deeply appreciated by her loved ones and her community. And as I mentioned earlier, we're in the process of reaching out to Emily's family to see what we can do about getting them a HOPE grant, which I hope can support them. They did have a GoFundMe at one point, but they actually did close it after receiving $27,000 in donations. So if they aren't looking for more financial help, I'm sure we can find a way to raise the reward for information, something like that. I mean, we have various ways that we can help them through the foundation, so I hope that we're able to do so. But again, if you guys want to help out yourself, don't underestimate the power of just spreading awareness. But most importantly, above all else, if you have any information regarding her murder, please contact the Gila County Sheriff's Detective at 928-200-2352, the Bureau of Indian Affairs Special Agent at 505-917-7830, or the San Carlos Apache Tribal Police Detective at 928-475-1755. I so desperately wish I had more to share with you about Emily's case. I know the information is very, very limited, and that makes these cases so frustrating, but they are still very important to talk about. So I really appreciate all of you who stuck through this entire episode, listened to everything that I had to say on this, and really listen to what the community is trying to get people to understand, because we have to see these changes. You know, the deaths of Indigenous people cannot be in vain. There are so many just like Emily that we have to remember, and we have to make these changes, or this is just going to continue to happen. I really want to hear your thoughts on the case, about the epidemic as a whole, you know, especially from those of you who have experienced this yourself. As always, I definitely want to hear from you all as far as your thoughts on the case. I would love to see some positive comments, as you guys always do, for her loved ones in case they come across this coverage, because those comments really go a long way. I know that firsthand from speaking to victims' families who have come on the show. You guys are just so awesome, and I'm so, so grateful for this audience. I truly am. I can't say it enough. I know it's probably annoying how much I say that, but I really, really appreciate you guys, and I'm so proud of this audience that truly, truly cares about justice for all victims. But that is going to be it for me this week. Of course, I will be back next week to talk about another case, but until then, stay safe out there.